Okay, I think we're live. Good morning, everybody, yeah, welcome to this talk from Impression and Google. First of all, thank you to everyone that's joined us here today. I think we've got about 340 people apparently joining, at least 340 people signed up. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. A bit of a crazy number considering this must be about the 50th webinar you've watched this month, so we really do appreciate it. Speaking of appreciation as well, a huge thanks to Polly, who's our marketing manager, for pulling this whole thing together for us today. Normally the role of someone like me in one of these things is to do a bit of selling and tell you how good Impression is, blah, 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 but it's not really our style. We tend to let our team's expertise do the talking and speak for itself, really. And yeah, to that end, we've got two specialists for Impression speaking today. Laura Hampton and Liam Wade, our heads of PR and paid media, respectively. Alongside them, we're delighted to be joined by Payal from a company called Google, who you guys might have heard of. I don't know. She's going to be diving into full funnel optimization techniques for us today. So yeah, you're all here to get some kind of useful insights or tips from our specialists. And having seen their talks today, I'm fairly certain that you will. I'll be moderating the Q&A at the end as well. So in the panel on one of these sides, I'm not sure which side, but on the chat panel on the side of the YouTube video, you'll be able to submit your questions to us today. Just go mad, give us as many questions as you want, and at the end we'll run a full Q&A and yeah, hopefully answer all your questions and help you get even more value out of it. So yeah, really is all the waffle that I'm gonna add to things today. I'm gonna hand straight over to the specialist, which is who you're here to see today. So yeah, first up is Laura. I will shut everybody else off and yeah, let Laura take the floor.
Great, thanks Adam. Good morning everyone. And yeah, as Adam says, I am Laura. I'm the head of digital PR here at Impression, and I'm going to talk to you this morning about how to drive measurable gains in top of funnel marketing. So we've all heard of the marketing funnel, right? This whole concept that we create mass awareness at the top level, we then nurture interest in our product or service, we hopefully build some desire so people want to purchase from us, and then we drive action, which more often than not is an on-site sale or the submission of a contact form that facilitates a purchase. So that's the basic concept of a marketing funnel. But are we giving enough attention or budget to the top of the funnel, or are we focusing mainly at the bottom? Now, if you're one of those businesses on the webinar this morning that's thinking, oh yeah, we actually focus the majority of our time and energy down at the conversion level, that's absolutely fine and it's completely understandable. Many of us focus the majority of our time down here at the bottom end because this is where we see the immediate gains in terms of sales and money into the business. But if we think about this from the user's perspective, from the consumer's perspective, it's rare that their journey is that straightforward. So people will come into our brand from different levels at the funnel, maybe entering at different stages. They may move around before converting, often interacting with us across different devices at different times, which means that we really need to recognize the value of those interactions higher up the funnel too. And it's not just about creating fantastic experiences for our users, though obviously that is incredibly important, but it's about future-proofing our brand. So whether yours is a brand that sells spur-of-the-moment commodities or maybe more considered purchases, we need to be confident in our pipeline. And I would argue that it's only by investing across the funnel that we can take control of what's going to be coming into our business tomorrow and not just capitalize on what's coming in today. So over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to be talking about how you can drive more top of funnel and in fact across the full funnel gains, specifically focusing on digital PR. So I'm going to talk about how we can use digital PR to gain coverage, not just coverage, but strategically advantageous coverage. I'm going to talk about using digital PR to earn links. So hopefully that's a fairly common concept amongst the audience here today, the idea that links into our website can improve our search rankings. So I'm going to be talking about how to be more strategic with that. I'm going to talk about how we can use digital PR to initiate journeys. So I'm going to talk about customer journey mapping and how we can optimize progression through to conversion. I'm going to talk about how to use digital PR to build audiences, and I'm going to encourage you to track everything. So the intention of this talk is ideally to give you some tangible takeaways, some things that you can action within your own business, but also to inspire you to start thinking about how you can focus more on the higher end of the funnel to drive your future growth. Cool, so let's talk about digital PR. These are just some of the brands that we're currently working with on digital PR. And the reason that I wanted to bring this up is that they're all incredibly different businesses, but all investing in the same thing. Why? Well, for some of them, it's about brand awareness. So these are some of the places that our clients have been featured in the last few weeks, and certainly there is a benefit to being featured in places like this, that you can be seen by your audience. But it's quite difficult to quantify. So on a more quantifiable level, more often than not, we're focusing on links and coverage. So we know that getting links into our site can support our search engine rankings. So getting other websites to link to ours can be of a huge benefit to us. So we're doing it for coverage, we're doing it for links, yes, but the purpose of these, what I would call outputs, is actually bigger than that. It's about supporting cross-funnel outcomes. So businesses aren't investing in digital PR just to get links, just to get coverage. They're actually doing it to drive awareness, interest, and desire, which, when done well, lead to action. So let's explore how we can be more strategic in our application of digital PR. Firstly, I talked about PR being a method to gain coverage, and certainly that is an important benefit. We should recognise that when we're featured in publications of note to our audience, it's a great way of driving awareness of our brand. And also, if we can monitor referral traffic from those publications, we can see a tangible benefit. So if we know that we've been placed, in the Telegraph or in the Mail or in a trade publication, whatever it may be, if we can see that people then come from that publication to our website, we know we've driven brand awareness rather than just giving them news stories to digest. So a tip on making your coverage more strategically beneficial is to work closely with your PR team to identify target publications in which you want to feature that are going to be of benefit to driving audiences that you know will convert, and monitor the resulting traffic that you get from those publications. Now, I'm saying this with one huge caveat, and this is that the coverage that you gain should be considered as a side benefit. So the likelihood of you being able to place salesy enough content through non-paid means that's going to drive actual meaningful action, the likelihood of someone coming from your news story and then buying your product immediately, is pretty minimal. So it's still worth celebrating when it happens, but don't expect PR coverage to immediately result in those bottom level conversion gains. So being more tangible then, looking at what we can more tangibly measure, we talk a lot about using PR to earn links. And as hopefully most of you will know, getting links to your website from external sites is an essential part of your organic growth strategy, because they tell Google that your website is worthy of visibility in the SERPs, or the search engine results pages. So a big tip that I have for you here is to integrate your digital PR strategy with your SEO strategy to maximize those returns. Now, what I mean by this is that I see a lot of digital PR campaigns run by agencies, run by brands across the world, across the country. And you can often see, I understand why they've done this. This is awesome. This is clearly speaking to the right audience. There are others, though, where you look at it and you think, I'm not really sure how that's relevant to the brand, or how it's necessarily going to contribute to building the right audiences or even the most relevant kinds of links. So what I'm saying here is that when we're investing in PR for links, we shouldn't be investing in PR just for links. It's not link building for link's sake. We need to be much more strategic. So let's dig deeper into what that looks like. So one thing that we do here at Impression is that we take the time to define what we call the owned goals and the shared goals. So the owned goals are the things that the digital PR team can directly influence. So that would be things like the number of links that we achieve, the quality of links, usually measured by something like domain authority or domain rating, so that we can see how good the websites are that are linking to us. The relevance of links, so by that I mean both the relevance of the campaign topic, but also the relevance of the sites that are linking through to us, which is even more pertinent given Google's recent updates around EAT. We need to communicate our expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And also the placement of links. So what I mean here is, where are the links pointing to? Is it going to product pages? Is it going to the home page? Is it going to the blog page, etc.? So those are the owned goals that we can directly influence. And in many cases, that's where the strategy stops. For many agencies that I've spoken to and in-house brands, they kind of define those goals and that's what they work towards and that's what they measure. And that's fine. But to be more strategic and to gain an advantage, I also believe it's of huge benefit to define the shared goals. So those are goals that you share between the PR team and maybe the SEO team or the broader marketing team, making sure that you're tying into the kind of top level business aspirations. And that would be things like keyword rankings. So if we're trying to improve our ranking position, what keywords are we trying to focus on? And traffic. So are we just trying to get more traffic? Are we trying to get more traffic from a particular segment of the audience, from a particular location to a particular area of the site? And sales as well. The vast majority of us on this call today are doing this so that we can make more money for our business. So are we trying to drive more sales? Are we trying to drive a higher value of sales? Are we trying to drive sales of a particular product from a particular segment of the audience? Having the knowledge of these shared goals, these kind of bigger picture goals that we're working towards, enables us to create strategies that are going to be far more beneficial, and we're going to maximize the returns that we get from our campaigns, as opposed to just link building for link's sake. Let's dig deeper into, again, how we would do this. So on the owned goal side of things, we use a lot of data to drive insights for us. So tools like Ahrefs, Majestic, Moz, they really help to identify whether the need is for quality or quantity of links, or maybe both. So the screenshot that you can see on the screen now is taken from Ahrefs and was from an audit that I did of a business a little while back, where it was really evident, as hopefully you guys can see quite easily, that the majority, in fact, all of their links are coming from very low, what we call URL rating websites. So the score that they're given out of 100 is very low, which indicates that those sites are actually of a very poor quality. So for this particular business, they've got the quantity of links, but the quality is very low. So our recommendation to them is that we really need to focus on quality above all else. We also integrate competitor insights as well. So it's worth noting that link building isn't just about getting more links than any other website in the whole world, because that's not going to happen, but it's actually about understanding the landscape that you operate within. So if we're trying to build new links, we need to understand that it's because we're trying to outrank this particular website for this particular set of keywords or whatever it might be. So in the case of the business that I was auditing here, what we actually found is that the vast majority of their competitors also had low quality backlink profiles. So in terms of prioritization and budget allocation, we knew that even just a small investment in gaining a few really high quality links could really move the needle for them. So it's about using that data to enable us to be more strategic about the focus that our link building activity is taking. And on the shared side, again, we use data to inform us. So tools like search metrics can help us to understand how algorithm updates have impacted our clients. If you don't pay for a tool like search metrics, there's something called the Barracuda Penguin tool, which will show you for free some indicators of how algorithm updates might have affected your site. But essentially, this is about just understanding the wider landscape and how best we can respond. And also, I'm going to use the word integration again, because it's genuinely so important to your marketing efforts, is that you have your SEO team inform your PR team and vice versa. The screenshot that you can see here is taken from some work that we did with a travel client. And on the basis of some research done by someone called Tom Capper a couple of years back, we understand that the keywords which are on page 2 are usually those which are most affected by links. So it's those terms for which you're ranking in positions kind of 11 to 20, where we know just a few really good links can push you onto page 1 and have a really marked impact on the traffic and therefore conversions coming into the site. So what we did here is we identified the keywords on page 2. We used some basic click-through rate predictions to understand what influence we think moving up a few places would have in terms of the amount of traffic and sales that we made, and then to be able to prioritize our link building campaigns to focus on those keywords which are going to generate eventually the highest value of sales. So it's really just about being as strategic as possible when we're using digital PR as a link building effort, and recognizing that it's not just links for link's sake. It's about using broader strategies to understand what's going to best move the needle against our wider business goals. Cool, so PR for coverage and PR for links are pretty well documented, and we talk about those quite a lot. However, another benefit that I don't think is explored as much is the use of PR to initiate journeys. And when we're thinking about full funnel marketing, we've already noted at the beginning of this talk that we need to recognize the benefits of interactions throughout the funnel and not just at the bottom end. PR is a great way to initiate those interactions at all levels of the marketing funnel. And the way that we like to do this, if you can look at the diagram here on the screen at the moment and just think back to the triangle, the funnel that I was showing earlier, essentially this diagram shows that funnel from the top down. And what we're seeing here is that those topics that are kind of relevant to the core, so which are closest to the conversion point, we identify the topics that are most pertinent to the user at that point. And then as we step kind of further and further away, those topics are still of relevance to the audience. They still play an important role in that marketing funnel, but they might be less closely related to our conversion point. So we'll create campaigns which are relevant to those things that drive awareness and interest, as well as those which drive purchase. Let me give you a real world example to explain that a bit better. So this is a diagram which outlines the strategy that we used with one of our clients a little while back. So this client sells water softeners, and what we did with them is something called keyword-based journey mapping, whereby we categorize the keywords that we're targeting according to three main areas. The first is conversion. So the bottom of the funnel, when people want to buy a water softener, the keywords that are relevant to that are, of course, water softener, buy a water softener, how can I buy a water softener, things like that. So that was quite easy, quite self-explanatory to categorize those keywords into that bucket. And the next area then, so if we take one step beyond that conversion, one step away from it, what drives people to realize they need a water softener? Well, it's understanding things like, what is hard water? How does hard water affect me? What's the difference between hard and soft water? It's those kind of education keywords that, again, we were able to categorize those keywords into that bucket and understand that people who come into the site by searching for those things are one step away from conversion, but still well on their way. And then at the furthest right on this diagram, we've got what we call the benefits keywords or the awareness keywords, whereby we were able to find from audience data and from audience research that the majority of people who are coming into that purchase journey start the journey with a problem, which is actually solved by the product. So having a water softener can give you healthier skin, it can alleviate the symptoms of eczema, it can improve the cleanliness of your home and things like that. So what we did is we started to build out a strategy that targeted those topics, knowing that that's going to feed the top of our funnel. And what we did, practically speaking, then, is that our SEO efforts started at the conversion side, where we were building out content relevant to those product keywords, and then moved through education to awareness. And on the PR side, we actually started at the opposite end. So we're using PR to generate links into the areas of the site which are relevant to those awareness keywords, but also recognizing that by investing in campaigns that are relevant to those awareness topics, the people that we attract to our site are within the journey of moving on to conversion. They are likely to go on to make a purchase further down the line as well. So again, it's not just creating PR campaigns with a view of building links, it's actually taking that very user-centric approach to make sure that the campaigns that we create are going to give us a strategic advantage and ideally lead to conversion. And then we can help people move from that content through the marketing funnel. So I'm going to talk a bit more about this later on in terms of how we can use other channels, but even simple things like having you may also like or users also viewed or similar mechanisms to encourage visitors from your PR content through your site can really help to progress them through the conversion funnel. And it's worth noting that journeys don't just start at the top of the funnel. So I've given examples there of how we created campaigns to attract that kind of top level awareness. But actually, if you can create PR campaigns further down the funnel as well, you're likely to see that conversions happen much more quickly off the back of it. So this again is for the water softener client, but we created a campaign around how hard is my water, which generated a huge number of newsworthy stories, gained us lots of lovely new links, but also the audience that interacted with that campaign were kind of that much closer to the point of conversion that we can see direct sales off the back of that interest as well. And of course, you can always reflect and refine on what you're doing. If you're taking an approach like we do at Impression, whereby you're layering different campaigns and different topics, that enables you to kind of see that when we did a campaign about skincare, the conversion rate was so much higher than when we did one about hair care, for example. So always be reflecting and refining your campaigns on the basis of what best engages your audience. And on that note then, another benefit of PR is that it enables us to build audiences. So I've talked about kind of link building and coverage and how we can kind of initiate journeys, but we can also create very valuable audiences through the use of PR campaigns. So as I've said here, alongside the kind of gentle encouragement of journey mapping, we can also start building audiences that we can actively push in the right direction. And what I mean by that specifically is that we really need to be tracking all of our campaign visits. So make sure that you're tracking through either cookies or pixels or email capture, social follows, any way that you can track the visitors that are coming to your site through your PR campaigns means that you can then use things like paid channels to reach them again in a way that encourages them through the marketing funnel to conversion. So let me give you another real world example of that. So we had a client who sold environmentally friendly building materials. And we knew through user data, through user research, that the reason people come to buy environmentally friendly building materials is that they are environmentally motivated. They value sustainability, they value the environment, they want to build a better world. So one of the campaigns that we ran involved naming a species of worm after Donald Trump. And this was in response to some comments that Trump had made at the time around how he perceived that climate change wasn't an issue. So we named the species of worm, and that picked up coverage in over 900 places around the world. Around half of those included really nice links back to the site. So that was a huge benefit from an SEO perspective. But also because people were so engaged with the content, we had a huge influx of traffic which came through to the site to learn more about the Trump worm. So by tracking the people who visited that blog post, as it was in this particular case, we were then able to build audiences, and we then used paid channels to send those audiences relevant messages that we knew would push them down the funnel. So from seeing the Trump worm, we then sent them messages relevant to kind of environmental mobilization. So a lot of stuff from the client's blog, talking about how important it is to be environmentally sustainable, what the issues are. And then people who engaged with that content, we're then able to send something much more salesy to say, buy our environmentally friendly building materials. And it's only by understanding how that funnel works and the stories that kind of are compelling to users throughout that we were able to do that and push people from a PR campaign to actually purchasing the product. Let me give you another example. This one's not from Impression because, you know, let's celebrate everyone. It's not just us. So this is a campaign done by an agency called Rise at 7 for a company called Spa Seekers. Now, Spa Seekers is a national brand that enables you to find spas and kind of nice relaxing treats near you. So they put together a campaign where they created a dream job. You could apply to be a spa tester, and that meant that you could go and sit in a jacuzzi and kind of get paid for the privilege. So they created this dream job that got picked up in a huge number of different publications, which was awesome from an SEO perspective. But also because the application form for the job was on the Spa Seekers website, it meant that people would come through. And I don't know, because I didn't work on this campaign, but if I did, I would hope that they were tracking that audience, because you could then send them some nice advertising messaging relating to spas near them, because, you know, it's not too much of a step from applying to test spas to wanting to go to one. So you could send them some nice adverts related to spas near them. And then those people who interact with that content, maybe send them something even more sales driven, like discounted spa products. As a slight aside, if this had been my campaign, I also would have done some vouchers for entrance. So it's just another way that you could say, you know, you've applied for the job, here's a voucher to get a bit of a discount on a spa, maybe track the voucher code, and then you can see, again, direct conversions off the back of that as well. So PR is a really, really effective mechanism to initiate journeys and to build audiences. And by understanding those audience journeys, we can encourage people through to that conversion point through softer techniques like I mentioned earlier with the users also like, you may also enjoy, that kind of thing, but also by integrating paid channels, we can actively push people through to that conversion point as well. And it's really important, if we are investing across the funnel, that we recognize conversions across the funnel as well. So when you're investing in digital PR or any mechanism to drive interaction across the whole marketing funnel, it's important to recognize the value of those interactions. So the KPIs that you set, the key performance indicators that you set, might relate to things like visits, it might be email capture, it might be downloads, video watches, live chat questions, and so on. Recognizing the interactions that show that people are progressing through the funnel is the best way to then identify the tactics that are going to drive the biggest conversion rate improvements at the bottom end. So hopefully that will make sense. It's really weird talking to you without being able to see you, because I have no concept of whether you guys are nodding along or if you've all left the room completely. So hopefully I'm not still on my own at this point. But just to summarize what I've been through, how to drive measurable gains in top of funnel marketing. Well, the first thing that I talked about was the fact that we need to invest across the funnel and not just at the bottom. That's because we want better user experiences, but also it's about future-proofing our brand and taking control of our pipeline. The second thing that I talked about was how PR has the potential to build really meaningful awareness. So we talk about coverage as being a benefit, which it is, it's great. It's often just a vanity metric, for want of a better word. But if we can track referrals, we can track traffic coming through to our site from those placements, we can apply, tangible value to it as well. I talked about how PR should earn links that support your SEO goals. So make sure that you are integrating your PR with your SEO strategy, defining things like your owned and your shared goals, for example. And we can use PR to initiate journeys at every point in the marketing funnel. And the best way to optimize progression through those journeys is to understand what steps a user is likely to take next. We can use PR to build audiences, so track the people who visit your campaign content and then create compelling narratives through paid channels to push them through to conversion. And finally, make sure you're tracking everything. If we can track all of the conversions or the micro conversions that happen along the way, we are much better equipped to improve our conversion rates when it comes to the bigger kind of macro conversions and sales as well. So that's everything I wanted to share with you this morning. My name's Laura. I'm at Laura L. Hampton on Twitter. You can reach me on my email or drop me any questions now, and I'll be happy to answer at the end. Thank you.
Nice one, really good. I'm still here, Laura, and so's an awful lot of other people too. That was that was great. We've got some questions in already as well, which we'll keep for the end. So just guys, bear with me for my laptop to catch up slightly. I'm going to try and bring Liam into the conversation. Hopefully, yeah. We just have to bear with me for a second there whilst I bring Liam up. But Laura, I guess whilst we wait for my laptop to wake up, we can actually answer the first question that came in, which I've got here. It came in from Matthew, who's a client of ours as well. So morning, Matthew. Matthew says that for a smaller business, when budgets are smaller, action normally needs to result in a lead or some kind of direct action. Do you see the same benefit for smaller businesses focusing on PR and these more kind of top of funnel awareness building tactics and the benefit they can have for a smaller business?
100%. I would say, regardless of the size of your budget, it's really important to recognize that the user journey doesn't start at the point of conversion. The user journey actually starts far beyond that. And the more that we can invest in optimizing and attracting customers higher up the funnel, the more we're going to see an increase in sales at the bottom level. So yeah, regardless of your budget size, it's really important to consider every single step of the journey. Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah, I'd certainly agree. Nice one. Anyone else? Any more questions? Like I said, please send them in. They're nice fillers for when something like this happens. And also we're more than happy to help. So cool. I think that's everything from Laura for now. I'll try and remove you now, Laura. You might be sat on screen for a minute. You just have to smile and wave. But yeah, hopefully you should be gone now. And I will leave the floor to Leah.
Thanks, Adam. My favourite things about those glitches Adam was having then was pausing on his frozen face a few times. That was very enjoyable. Thanks for joining us today, guys. Laura, that was great. Going to change topics slightly, so we're moving into more PPC realms. This presentation is going to be about blending automation with creativity. Hope you guys are doing well. This talk could have well have been titled "Cool Stuff That You Can Do" as well, and it is going to get nerdy. And I do talk quite quickly. But there's loads and loads of stuff that I want to share with you guys. So yeah, hopefully you guys can keep up and yeah, these shares will be these slides will be shared afterwards. So first, a bit of backstory. So when I first started doing PPC, these were the things I believed, and I had good reason to believe them. I was very much focused on gaining more control and being as granular and manual as possible. I used to do talks scathing against Google, saying, oh, you need to take that control. In fact, many of you who have been clients with us for years and years will remember me saying that. But now things have changed slightly, and now in my 7th year of PPC, which is crazy considering I stole at 12. But how I operate today is very different. I'm much more focused on using shared data and combined data to make better decisions, so data density. And I make macro changes whilst also using kind of changes at the micro level. So we've got a bit of a philosophy. It's a personal philosophy of mine. If we're finding ourselves repeating the same manual task 3+ times, there's normally a way of making it faster, or if not, automating it. And this is just a quick animation of one of my big bugbears is when I hear that people are having to manually create reports each week. So hopefully you guys are already automating a lot of your reports. If you've got reports that you think that just can't be automated, I'm sure there's a way, and I'm happy to help because that's just the stuff I do at the weekend. But for today, what I want to focus on is which PPC tasks are best to use automation. And for automation, when I decide whether to automate something, I tend to look at these 4 principles. So one would be data type. So is it quantitative, so numbers-based, or qualitative data? The availability of that data, is that integrated within the platforms that we want to make decisions based upon, or is it more intangible? The frequency of us doing this task, so is it frequent or infrequent, and the efficiency gains from doing it. And I guess an important lesson here is just because we can automate something doesn't mean that we should. And creativity, and what I want to focus on today, comes in the line between these 2 factors. So where you can gain a competitive advantage in PPC and paid is where you can use more manual and creative structures for tasks that are generally better suited for automation, and when you can do the opposite as well. So when you can use automation to power a task that is usually quite manual. So the first one I want to focus on is ad copy. So in particular, people will think of this as a very creative topic, but actually the vast majority of ad copy within Google Ads and the way that we interact with it is very much automated. So back to when I was introduced to PPC and I was even skinnier than I am now. This was what really drew me into doing paid media. Aaron, RMD, showed me 2 ads and said, look at the click-through rate between these, and we put them against each other, and that's how you learn what works better. You split testing ads to find which works. And so I used to indefinitely rotate my ads, trying to find out which terms perform better. And then over the years, I've gradually given more trust to Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Twitter, whichever the ad platform I'm using, to optimize my ads and to rotate them based on a higher number of clicks. Many will say, oh, that's not right, I want to test myself, but these platforms want you to have more clicks, trust me. And then there's a lot of agencies and teams out there that are still trying to use statistical significance when they're evaluating their ad testing. And if you're still doing that, download these slides, check out this link from Martin Roet-Gerding about why that doesn't really make sense to do these days. It comes down to the fact that there are a variety of factors and kind of affecting that. More on that later. So responsive search ads then is a way of really taking your ads to the next level. So these have been out for quite some time now. Still not great utilization across most of the higher spending advertisers that we audit. So if you're not familiar with these instead of writing individual ads that then split test against each other, these work by creating, you sign up to 15 headlines, 4 description lines, and then you pin headlines to maintain consistency. So these do a lot of the testing for you, a lot of the heavy lifting for you. We also have scripts that then help to power. So quick shout out to Nathan Eiffel, who is a member of the paid team, who is building scripts galore. He's currently averaging about 1 or 2 per week, and he's really helping to kind of automate a lot of the work that we do. So an example script here, and if you're interested in this, drop me a note, is the automatic RSA adder. So it takes the ads that you've already got and creates responsive search ads based upon them. Many of you will know that Google can also create ads for you. So this is ads by Google, and you can have Google auto-apply these ad suggestions. So they will take ad performance from previously used ads to create ads that they think are going to perform really well. Many people are skeptical of this. What I would say is give these a go. If if you do have time to review the additions, obviously computers can make mistakes, so you do need to check them. Now, the big danger of ad automation is this. Now, take a moment to just kind of gather your thoughts and let me know what you think about these ads. Feel free to write a comment. I am reading them. These ads are absolutely shocking. I've got nothing against these two companies, but I really do not care. There's no emotional connection with them. The danger of ad automation is that we get lazy. We start focusing on saying, oh, I'll just give Google loads and loads of text and Google will just automatically optimize it, and I don't really need to bother with ad copy anymore. But actually, the automation and the time saving frees you up to be a lot more creative with the ad content that you're using. So one way of doing this is to find your customer's language. So that's the biggest tip that I've got for creating inspiring ads, whether that's Google, Facebook, or whether you're even just writing landing page copy. So here's a few ideas of where you can find your customer's language. I won't go through each of them individually. Some of the ones I want to pull out, one is reviews. So look at your own reviews, look at your competitor reviews. What are people talking about? What don't they like? What do they like? And that's some of the language that you can use in your ads so that you're kind of less jargony and more specific to them. And then also speaking to them. So speak to your customers, like run surveys, find out more about them and use them in your ads. And we like to use something which I would refer to as wildcards. So these are ads that they struggle to pass the censors, they struggle to pass through our clients, they struggle to pass through management teams because they're a bit more out there. But this is what the automation frees you up to do. So here's an example with RedBrain and OneFeed having a bit of beef actually on competitive bidding. But what I really like about these ads is that they're emotionally connected and they're very interactive. And so adding a wildcard boosted with the automation that you're kind of already using will enable you to kind of really get some good results. Taking this one step further, then, we can actually use automation to be creative in our personalization. So take the ad at the top, which is for ASICS trainers, it's running shoes, and buy ASICS trainers online. And then what you'll see here is that they've gone for kind of a very typical ad. However, we can use customizers, if statements to show specific ads if a user's been on the site before, or specific ads if they're new, specific ads if they're on a mobile. We can use customizers to input price data, and we can use countdowns to create urgency. So again, it's automation, but it's very much using it in a creative way. So that's ad copy then. So we can use responsive search ads, which will split test ad copy at great scale. And you can use the automation then to do the heavy lifting, and you can spend more time being creative. The ad copy very much is often what a customer first sees of your brand, so it's a good opportunity to kind of really hone your message. And then use ad customizers to automate personalization. So that's ads. Let's talk now about bidding. So I'm going to focus specifically about bidding within paid search right now. And bidding lends itself very much to automation. It's quantitative data. It's integrated. You often have the conversion data within the platform for the most part. You have to make these changes frequently because the auction doesn't exist in the silo. You're always bidding against competitors for ad space. So bidding, quick exercise. Those of you amazing at maths will get this straight away. Just have a quick look. Which keyword has the highest return on ad spend? Shout at your screen. I can actually hear you if you shout loud enough. And if you got there fast enough, you'll see that keyword 2 has the highest return on ad spend. The ratio between revenue to cost is higher. However, what PPC managers have to do is make bidding decisions based on data like this. And the trouble is, averages lie. So as soon as I add another dimension to this, you'll see what happens to the data. So now I've split this by mobile, desktop, and tablet. And you can see here that if you compare like for like mobile, desktop, and tablet against the two keywords, every single time keyword 1 actually has a higher return on ad spend. So I would highly recommend having a look at this or considering this when using manual bidding, because actually there's a lot more data that you need to be aware of. If you're looking at this and thinking the math doesn't work out, feel free to take a screenshot and use a calculator. It definitely works out. So that was just 3 bidding decisions per keyword, but actually this can get extended and extended. So here's an example of me just adding day of week and hour of day, 2 more bidding signals. Suddenly we have 504 bidding decisions per keyword to make. And let's just ramp this up straight away to over 1,000 bidding decisions. Suddenly we've added only 2 locations. There's obviously more. We've added gender, we've added age, we've added parental status, and we've added just 1 additional audience to the mix. And suddenly we have over 100,000 bidding decisions. So you've got 100,000 bidding decisions per keyword, and this isn't even including search queries. And so that leads a lot of people to think that PPC looks a lot like that. It definitely doesn't. Thankfully, in order to manage this, most platforms, including Google and Microsoft, will have bid strategies available. The 2 most common bid strategies are target cost per acquisition and target return on ad spend. So this is targeting for a cost per lead or targeting based on the ratio of cost to revenue you want to achieve. And these really help to use those signals I've just described and optimize performance for them. The question I often get from clients and the team and myself sometimes late at night is, hang on, if every advertiser is using the same really good automation, then who wins? The answer often lies in the detail, often lies in the business, but there are things that you can do to use these bid strategies more to your advantage. And so here are 3 types of PPC managers. Quite meanly, I'm calling some of them donkeys or horses, but I definitely was in this camp very recently. So most of us start at the skeptic level. We do not want to use smart bidding. We are very fearful of Google and Microsoft. We don't trust the platforms. We don't want to use it. Then you tend to find technicians. So these are the people that have been using automated bidding. They've been using machine learning tools in order to make changes in their campaigns. And finally, we have the problem solver. Now, the problem solver looks beyond the headline targets. They're like a technician plus. So they're looking beyond just trying to achieve these top line goals, and they're actually speaking to businesses or their business about what challenges do we need to solve. So let's use a few examples of these. So common question, how can we acquire more new customers? The golden question, right? They don't usually look this happy, our clients, when they're asking us this question. So the skeptic would probably go in and say, well, I'm going to increase the bid for new customers by 15%. I'm just going to put 15%, I'm going to bid more aggressively for them, which is great, doesn't really work. The technician may then come in and say, well, we're already running target return on ad spend or target cost per acquisition on this campaign. So what we're going to do, we're going to adjust the target slightly. So we're going to go a lot more aggressive for new customers, and we're going to go less aggressive for returning customers, which is good, but it doesn't really achieve the aim. The aim here is to focus on achieving as many new customers as possible. So the problem solver may come in and say, okay, well, hang on, why are we focusing on acquiring new customers? And the answer may be, well, because we expect they're going to make repeat purchases. In that case, what's the value of these users to the business? What's the customer lifetime value? In other words, what do we need to spend to get these users in? And so the problem solver may approach it like this. They'll use 2 different automated bid strategies that are very, very different, and they work in different ways. And they'll split the campaign in 2. So for new customers, they might target based on a cost per acquisition basis. So they're trying to get as many users as they can, as long as they're within the target CPA. And that's based on a predicted lifetime value. Then segmented to that or supplemented to that, they'll still target those returning customers and try to capture them profitably. So combining these is solving a business problem in a slightly different way. For those PPC folk in here, if you're using Search Ads 360, you can actually switch the attribution models for these in order to target users based on when they're likely to purchase within the funnel. Definitely won't go too in-depth into attribution today because we really don't have a lot of time, and I'd have to talk even faster. So then another question that we often get, or another statement we often get from retailers is, I have a large, unique catalogue of products. And this could go for services as well, where everything's very, very unique and you have to kind of have individual challenges. And what a lot of businesses will do, and what of agency-client relationships will happen, will say, okay, well, let's boil this down into a very simple to understand KPI. That's actually not the best way of going about it. So the technician, for example, may come in, and this is a very good strategy that does work, and say, well, I'm going to switch my return on ad spend targets based on the important products to the business, which is a really good way of doing it. The problem solver, on the other hand, will take a slightly different approach. They'll say, okay, well, what are the unique challenges that you're facing across the catalogue? And how do you currently group your catalogue? They may speak to purchasing teams. And from that, they may result in a structure a little bit more like this. So they'll still have the main catalogue. They'll still be using target return on ad spend. However, for those products that are customer enticers, for those products that are price leaders, loss leaders, for those products that are the shop window, trying to get custom in, they may use target CPA, again, based on customer lifetime value. Third element to this strategy is something that we used for one of our clients during the challenges that we had. They were unable to sell their product. However, they had product coming in, which meant that they had they had warehouse pressure. They either had to get rid of the product entirely or pay for more warehouse space. So for them, one of the problems they had, they wanted to shift these products as much as possible. And they probably wouldn't have spoken to us about this issue had we not given them the levers that were available. And so we used a max conversion strategy for this particular product subset to shift those products. And this is an example of kind of listening and speaking and trying to solve problems rather than just hitting those kind of top level KPIs. So it comes down to a sharing of challenges beyond the top level. So PPC specialists and agencies who tend to be focusing on saying, I can achieve X% or X pound cost per lead, should be saying, well, these are the levers that I can pull. What challenges do you have as a business? And on the other side of things, the marketing managers can be focused on more, these are the challenges that we've got. What we found over the past 6 months after trying to open up these conversations more is that there's a lot more we can do to help using varied bid strategies and using the automation we have at our disposal than we would have otherwise realized. We have a lot more of those challenges to kind of work together on. Now, I will caveat, because I've spoken quite heavily about how good automated bidding in, and I know that some of our clients in here won't be using automated bidding for their campaigns. And so manual bidding definitely still does have its place. Smart bidding works really, really well, and it works 80% of the time, but there are times when it doesn't work. Manual bidding allows you to have greater flexibility. You can bring kind of contextual information that you understand to each decision. And actually, as a learning process to learn the market, you can learn a lot more by managing campaigns manually. We're getting a lot of PPC managers coming through these days that have been trained only ever on using these kind of automated tools, and you can see in their knowledge that they don't quite fully understand how the auction works. So in my opinion, every PPC manager should have experience of manual bidding, but maybe that makes me a bit old school. So blending for bidding then. So first, far too many signals. Avoid manual bidding where you can. Set varied goals, combining bid strategies across the account. PPC managers should become problem solvers for you rather than just technicians hitting a one fixed goal. And internal teams can communicate and use levers to solve business challenges. So that's bidding. I'm going to take a sip of water. I am seeing your questions, by the way, so keep them coming. Happy to answer at the end. So keywords then tend to fall more towards the manual area, and that's because it's very much qualitative data. So keyword tasks are typically manual, so you'll be looking at researching, selecting, structuring, analyzing. And the reason they lend themselves to manual decisions is because it's often based on semantics. So it's our understanding of what these words mean in context. So it's good reason that keyword management is typical manual. Now, what ad platforms are doing, they're gradually making the control we have over keywords less prominent and becoming more and more automated. So before I was doing PPC, match types, so keyword match types being if you select an exact match keyword, it means you only show for that term. If you select a broad match keyword, it can show for terms related to that term. So back in 2014, match types did exactly what they said they would do. However, you would have to build up massive lists of misspellings and pluralized words if you wanted to get those people that made typos. Around the time I started doing PPC, plurals, misspellings were included, and these gradually became stronger. So we don't have to build 1,000 keywords for every single keyword anymore. Around 2018 is when exact match, which supposedly used to be the most exact form of keyword, became the least exact criteria keyword at all. And instead, search terms are more closely matched on intent now. And then automatic, which is where it's going, is give Google your landing page, give Google a single keyword, tell Google what your business does, or Microsoft, and they will do the rest for you. Easy, right? And these actually already exist. So if you don't know already, these are dynamic search ads. So you give Google or Microsoft top level data, and they will kind of target keywords for you. And so in response to these automated changes, these aren't automations that we've implemented, but we have to react our approach to managing campaigns based on them. So when I was starting to do PPC, it was very much group your campaigns based on themes. Over time, the focus came on becoming more and more segmented. Some businesses went towards a SCAG format, which sounds disgusting, but it's actually just a single keyword per ad group. Some businesses went towards exact match and broad match campaign splits, which again was really, really useful, and we tend to use this quite a lot. However, because things are moving more and more automatic and keywords are given more and more freedom to match to endless levels of search queries, where we're heading now is more towards grouping campaigns and keywords based on grouped intent. So if the intent match is the same, you can group them together. And impression kind of sits in this kind of gap just between exact broad match campaigns and grouped intent. So let's look at automating some of these keyword challenges. So selecting. Here's another shout out to Nathan for building a script called Dave. If you want to know why it's called Dave, download these slides, check out the script. There's a big explanation at the bottom. I'm not sure I or Nathan really understand it anymore. It's taken on a world of its own. But Dave's a really powerful script. So rather than you paying, if you're the client, if you're paying an agency or if you're paying a PPC person in your team to go through and find high performance queries in a search query report and add them as keywords, this script does it for you. And it does it based on particular performance data. Then many of you will have seen this before, so it's analyzing based on n-gram queries. So rather than going through a big query list and trying to organize keyword level data, in which case I think something like 25% of all queries every day are completely unique, and maybe Payal can correct me on that if that's wrong these days. But it does mean that most queries are unique, and so combining the data and using n-gram analysis is a really good way of summing that data together. So essentially what it does, it takes phrases or single words and sums the data for performance. So we can see it sums the data every time black long is used in a query here. Another really good script from Nathan that we often use for kind of managing keywords is big spenders. And this is where we can play more of the role of the problem solver or the teammate rather than using this data for PPC benefits. So we have a script that analyzes and emails the most expensive non-converting search term in a Google Ads account. So this is really useful when we're working with organic teams, be that our own organic teams or a team in-house, for sharing those terms that we're really finding it hard to get a profitable cost of acquisition for. There are times when PPC just simply isn't profitable for a term, so we should do what we can to rank for those terms. So blending for keywords then, group keywords by intent, create data-dense campaigns, and invest in site content because relevancy on site is only going to get more important. Use automation to produce the insights not easily readable within standard reports, and continue to be a problem solver. So to summarize what we've been through today, hopefully you've managed to pick up a few bits that you haven't heard before. So competitive advantage is going to come from making typically automated tasks more manual, so finding creative ways of layering automation together, and vice versa. So automating some aspects of manual which doesn't need human intervention so that you can free up time and resource to think more strategically. Within ad copy, I'd say quick wins, use RSAs to test at scale and start introducing wildcards. If you're thinking we haven't updated our ad copy in 3 months, now's the time to do it. Bidding, you can solve business challenges by blending automating strategies together and have those conversations. And keywords, adapt your approach. The platforms are only going to get more automated. They're going to give you less control. And it's not because they're trying to harm you. Actually, this is benefiting marketing. And finally, the most important thing, have fun. But yeah, drop me any questions in the comments below. We'll answer them at the end. You can chat to me on Twitter as well. And yeah, drop me an email if you fancy it.
Nice one, Liam. Cheers, mate. There's a few questions there. We'll try and leave them to the end, so I'm keen to get Payal on. We've gone over slightly, but you always were a talker anyway, weren't you? So
thanks.
Let's get Payal on here if we can, if my stream can catch up with me. But again, if it freezes, we might just dive into one of those questions straight away. Yeah, it's okay. Let's just pick one of those questions whilst, again, I wait for my laptop. I'm gonna have to put my laptop on ice after this. It's smoking at the moment. But yeah, there's an interesting point, I guess a statement rather than a question, just about competitor bidding and competitor ads. It's sometimes seen as bad practice in certain industries, but it'd be cool for you to just expand on that a little bit.
Competitor bidding is very interesting. I'd say maybe 30% of our clients use it. I would say that it's difficult. I would say that it works incredibly well, but can open up a can of worms. We would tend to invest in competitor bidding if we're already seeing competitor bidding on our own brand terms. However, we also work with brands that have agreements with some of their competitors that they won't bid on each other's term, because it saves them both money. I think whilst the industry is divided and half tend to believe that competitor bidding is bad practice and it's actually unethical, many of us, including myself, I think it's fair game. So it's whatever your brand's comfortable with.
It can work, certainly, when done right. Great. Well, yeah, my laptop's caught me up, and we've got Payal with us now. Let me just share Payal's first screen, and hopefully we're good to go. Tell me as soon as you can see this screen pop up here.
Perfect. Hi everyone, I'm Payal, and I think just as a third piece of this, we're going to be diving into what does it mean to navigate the path forward. And before we dive into that, a quick introduction. Like Liam, I've been at the PPC industry for nearly 7 years now, and through this time I've worked with a lot of US retail clients. And while my first 5 years were there, I spent a year after that in YouTube advertising, and the most recent 1 year working as an agency development manager. Like we know, the path forward is paved with uncertainty. We're just coming out of a crisis, and like any crisis, you need to solve for the first step. The first few steps will help you solve the challenges of tomorrow. So it's basically a few logical steps that you take in the process of navigating a massive crisis. Here's what history's taught us. Just zooming out of this crisis, looking at what we've seen in the past. Decisions that are made early on have a massive impact on how brands and businesses emerge out of a crisis. I think the key thing to note here is that a crisis, like any shock, leaves everyone in a fight or flee situation. But the idea here is to take action constantly to navigate out of the crisis. This specific crisis that we're in has two aspects to it. One is recovering from COVID itself, and second aspect of it is speaking to the economic recovery that seems to be a bit more staggered. And it can be extremely difficult for businesses, for marketers to navigate this crisis if you have objective time-bound goals. Because the market's changing, the uncertainty just continues to be building on. If you had targets in short-term KPIs like quarterly sales or even tighter ROAS numbers that you're driving towards, these are going to look extremely fluid and are going to constantly be fluctuating based on external decisions like when the lockdown lifts, etc. So I think a concept that seems to be working really well is the idea of super goals. And just what super goals are is what would be a picture of success, but not necessarily something that's extremely time-bound or objectively driven. To give you an example of a super goal for a brand, it could be something along the lines of they want to be a market leader in, let's say, environmentally friendly building material, and that's a super goal. So through this crisis, as they navigate individual logistical situations or changing ROAS targets, etc., if they keep driving towards the larger goal, even if in the interim they do face some shortcomings, they will feel a consistent motivation and direction to drive towards the larger goal. Strategically speaking, for every business at this point, there are three key pieces that they need to navigate. First, they need to take action early and recognize what's changing in the market. Second, they need to capture demand by tackling what are the leading indicators of change in their market. And third, they need to commit to newer models of business and be resilient as a brand and as a business. Most marketers in the virtual room we are in today will be lining things up to execute against such strategies. We'll dive into three pieces here. We'll dive into a little bit of the creative. We'll dive into what automation can do to drive results for you. And third, we'll dive into what audiences mean for your business right now. The first piece around creative and consideration, I think to kick this off, I would love to kind of hear from all of y'all what your experience has been navigating this this COVID lockdown situation. So if you can just go to www.menti.com and enter the code 82305. And I will switch my tab in the meantime and see how many of y'all have made it to that thing. Here's the question that you will see. Yeah. Okay, I see one person voted for wanting some toilet paper roll. What was the first item that you stocked up on when you prepared for the lockdown? Do we have more people on the... Let me know through the live comments. Oh, amazing. I see people popping in here. A lot of toilet paper. Not surprised. I give everyone a few more seconds before we see what all of this looks like. No one for games, skincare supplies, beer. I know we're not going to be going back to the pubs for a while now. Okay, got a bit of everyone here. A lot of gamers in the house. A bit more toilet paper users. Awesome. Okay. I'll take the next 10 seconds and then we'll pop off and see what we've got on our side. Lots of toilet paper. Perfect. Perfect. Like we saw, a ton of people bought toilet paper, and this was hardly surprising. Here's what we saw on trends.google.com. Of the 4 categories, all of which peaked during the COVID lockdown, toilet paper was the one that had the sharpest peak. It went up by 20 times in that time frame, and like you see, demand staggered over a period of time. It is very interesting for brands that sell such toilet paper to navigate such a crisis, and for that, let's see what Cottonelle had to do. I thought of this as a great example for us to dive into what good creative looks like at this time, because a few things that really stand out on the creative front at this point is the absolute need to be empathetic in every aspect of the creative, whether that's tone, visual imagery, copy, keywords, every aspect of it needs to speak to the current background and context that people are in. Second, like a lot of us might have noticed, the current situation hasn't allowed for very great creative development and has made us rely a bit more on past creative and repurposing that, or using automated creative options. And both of these you would have seen in the Cottonelle ad was an extremely highly driven from the creative budget standpoint, was extremely agile in terms of being able to tweak the message around. And it's going to be absolutely critical as we continue to navigate our way out of this. The third piece is brands now more than ever need to find helpful and human ways to connect with people. One example of this is what we're doing right now, where we are talking to you via live stream, and that could be a great way to connect. Building associations with creators and using existing initiatives like the Stay at Home With Me campaign, etc., are great ways to connect with your audience. With this, we'll dive into the second piece, and super critical at this time, because budgets mean so much more and everything needs to be measured and needs to be results driven. So what does it mean to drive results during an uncertain time? First, to drive any campaign, you need to adjust your approach and adapt to the newer consumer demand and the newer format in which you are fulfilling this demand. So this might mean that you're driving traffic more online than you were in store, and you need to make sure that everything from your Google Ads conversion tracking, etc., tracks those micro conversions and speaks to the massive shift that you made as a business, and you're adapting your campaigns, your PPC campaigns, your display campaigns, your YouTube campaigns to measure that shift in your own business. Second, take a step back, leverage automated solutions and optimize your campaigns for conversion. And I think Liam already touched upon this in great detail, but in terms of the few things that I'd like to highlight is custom intent audiences. They tie 7 Google platforms, each of those with over a billion users, and give you the signals to be able to assess where demand is and how people are responding to that demand. So it kind of helps you build audiences that would have visited certain locations on maps, are looking for certain kind of content on YouTube, are searching for certain search terms on Google search, are navigating content related to what you sell on the display network. So it's a great way to tie all of these platforms together and target audiences. Make the most of that. Now more than ever, using remarketing lists and audience expansion tools is going to be important. And we already stressed on this in the first half in terms of how important upper funnel is to marketing as a business and then just growing business at this point. And the second piece of it is bidding. And on that front, I think it's extremely important, like Liam said, you need to assess what's changing and be more of a problem solver than just a responder to the change or just adapt any automated bidding strategy. Really sit down with your team and see what your different goals are and realign your approach and make the most of auto bidding. It uses 16 signals dynamically, which would be nearly impossible for any manual bid to kind of accommodate and adjust for. The third and the final piece here is audience insights during uncertain times. And this is extremely critical because this defines what baseline business is going to look like. And it could mean survival for some of us. And in some cases, it might also mean you're responding to extremely high consumer demand that is extremely critical for you to meet as a business at this point. So stay informed with changing consumer trends. We touched upon this piece when we dove into what Google Trends for toilet paper, beer, and some of those products look like. You have access to the exact same tools. So go to trends.google.com, type in what product you are selling is, and see how demand is shifting on a real-time basis. Second, find insights from not just keywords or any display network or anything. You can do that cohesively by using Find My Audiences on the Think with Google website. And what it does is it will go as granular as telling you which of those YouTube channels that your users are really tuned into, what are those websites on the display network that they spend a lot of time on. And you can use all of this information to build a very cohesive, tight, full funnel marketing plan. And while you're at it and you're building a full funnel marketing plan for measuring them and targeting them, it's absolutely essential that you tie those pieces together and gradually move audiences down the funnel to custom intent audiences, measurement attribution, remarketing lists can help you move those audiences down the funnel and get some amount of attribution to what your marketing spend on the branding front is contributing to the performance front, and basically tie that whole piece together and put value and customer journeys behind a purchase decision. Wrapping up very quickly, in summary, there are two things. Take positive action at this time. It feels like a moment of crisis, but movement and positive plan movement is going to be even more critical now than ever before. And second, be agile as a business in terms of your marketing and everything. You might need to keep adapting to different situations that come your way, and agility will be key as you navigate that. Lastly, thank you, stay well, and stay safe.
That was great. Thank you, Payal. Yeah, some really good stuff in there for sure. I mean, especially the take positive action and make positive gains at the moment. I know it can be tough to commit to certain aspects of marketing, but now's the time to do it. Great, Liam's there. I'll just add Laura as well. Yeah, thanks. Still got loads of you sticking with us, even though we've run over by a few minutes. And yeah, we have got a couple of questions. A couple in actually for Liam at this point. But yeah, any questions for Laura or Payal as well, do get them in. But yeah, Liam, the first one, this is actually one that was sent in to us in advance. In a world of automated paid media campaigns, automated PPC campaigns, what is the role for the paid media specialists? What is the role for the humans in this automated world?
Yeah, so if you're in PPC, get a new job like immediately. No, I think the role's just changing, and it's less about, it's kind of what I was saying in the talk. It's less about making granular changes and chipping away at automation, at kind of manual bidding. It's a lot more focused on querying the machines. If you think about automation in a factory, whilst some jobs were lost, actually those jobs changed, and factory workers these days are much more about how you QA and how you operate those machines. And smart bidding still needs a lot of coaching, as Payal will definitely agree with me. Still needs a lot of coaching and managing and intelligent ways of running it in order to be effective.
Nice one. Yeah, another question for Liam on the paid side. As business profits have been squeezed during the pandemic, do you think there'll be a reduced demand for paid media services, paid media campaigns? I mean, it's to be honest, probably the opposite of what we've seen, really, isn't it, at Impression? But yeah, I guess you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, quite good question for Luke as well, that one. I think for what I'd say, like it's really going to depend on the industry, and it's really going to depend on the scale. I think particularly for e-commerce, actually, we're seeing more interest than ever, because obviously e-commerce is doing really well. On the other side of things, I think what we're going to see is smaller businesses be less willing to pay kind of freelancers to be managing their PPC, particularly when now more than ever it's easier to automate highly effective campaigns using just the tools that Google and Microsoft have got available. So I think for those, we're going to see reduced demand, but I think PPC is still going to grow. That's what we're expecting.
Yeah, and I guess on that point as well, there's the kind of the analytics side of it, and the same goes for, that same theme runs across all of our talks today. Really is about being measurable with it. I guess analytics isn't really something that we've spoken about, but I guess the beauty of digital is being able to actually track the impact that all of the different channels and across the full funnel that Payal mentioned, that the activity is happening. And then a final question here again for paid media. I guess everyone else answered their questions in their talks, Liam. You must have left some ends open. But yeah, the question from Super 8, we use campaign priority keyword filtering in Google Shopping ads with manual bidding. Is this technique now out of date, given the focus from Google on automated bidding? I guess, Payal, you can chip in on that question as well.
Yeah.
I'll jump in first.
If you want.
Yeah, because for the campaign priority keyword filtering in Google Shopping, we still use that technique, I'd say, on 90% of our e-commerce campaigns. So it's definitely still a relevant and highly effective technique. However, we don't tend to use it these days with manual bidding. We tend to use automated bidding alongside it. So whilst we're separating queries, we then use slightly different bid strategies on different levels. So one example might be for brand and model terms, which we expect to convert really, really well. We might use a target return on ad spend target, which is quite low, or we may indeed use a kind of very aggressive maximize clicks bid strategy in order to maximize the number of clicks coming through that campaign. Whereas for the others, we might still use target return on ad spend. So bid strategies actually work really well with that technique. Or if you want to go the whole hog, you can go with smart shopping, which we've seen mixed results for.
Just adding to what Liam said, I think it's also about tying all of these pieces together. So if you're seeing queries on shopping that are doing extremely well, then you might want to target them in your PPC campaigns and have more crafted ad copy. I think the benefit of doing that is that you might have 2 impressions, but pages for 1 click. So you own more of the search page, which adds up to a really nice experience for an audience. So definitely don't think of individual pieces of the shopping campaign or PPC campaign. Make them speak together, own a better part of the search results page, and give users more information if you have the chance to.
Excellent, great. And yeah, just a question come in here for Laura on the digital PR side of things. So what is the digital PR future for single artists who want to get some attention against all digital noise? Pretty good question. I guess we've seen on social a lot of artists going viral for their own pieces and their own productions recently. But what part can digital PR play in that, if any, in your opinion, Laura?
Yeah, so I think there are certainly cases where I've seen brands benefiting from what I'd call kind of the brand halo effect, where a journalist will want to quote a really big, strong brand, regardless of what it is they're saying in some ways, because they're such a strong brand, they want to have their voice represented. But actually, I think in the vast majority of cases, digital PR provides much more of a level playing field. And actually, the way to get found and heard through the noise is just to have really great stories to tell. And that doesn't matter what size of brand you are. There are ways that you kind of can create your own news. Maybe you've got stuff going on that you can share, but equally there are plenty of sources out there that you can be using to create something very, very newsworthy. So in terms of kind of what you can do on the cheap or for lower budgets, things like using FOI requests, freedom of information requests to the government to gain access to data is something that anyone can do. There's a site called whatdotheyknow.org that you can go to, and you can submit your request for data through there, and that's absolutely free to do. We've had loads of campaigns where we've used data like that to generate newsworthy stories and gain coverage in huge national publications, and that's very, very accessible. Equally, doing surveys and things like that is a relatively inexpensive way of generating news stories. We had a client who they created a fake product and got loads and loads of interest off the back of that. It was done by my colleague Damien, and it was an anti-nightmare mist. So basically it was a spray that you could spray around kids' bedrooms to get rid of the monsters around Halloween. The total investment of that was purely just the graphic image that our designer made. It probably took her a couple of hours. Again, that's something that's so relatively inexpensive to do, but the coverage that we're able to achieve was massive. So there's loads of stuff on the Impression blog talking about different tactics that you can use, and they can all be kind of scaled according to what your budget is. So I'd say that it's actually quite a level playing field. It doesn't matter what size of brand you are, as long as you've got a really good, compelling story, you should be able to be heard through the noise.
Nice one. Thanks, Laura. Great. Well, I think unless anyone's got any other burning questions, that probably wraps us up for today. Thanks to everyone that's joined and for sticking with us. We've gone over by probably about 15 minutes here, but all good stuff and useful answers there as well. So we'll end the broadcast in a second and let you guys get off. But just to say thanks for joining us, and stick around, stay in touch. Basically, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.